From news and views, issues and opportunities, we'll have in-depth conversations with decision makers to find out what they know and what they think. I'm Rico Hizon, inviting you to join the exchange because your business is our business. 2022 will be a comeback year. At least, that's what most Filipinos believed when we bid farewell to 2021. COVID-19 cases have substantially declined.
Russia's invasion continues to
hit a bomb shelter.
13 pesos.
But another crisis is testing the Filipino resilience. A war far from our shores exempts no one from its impact, including our kababayans at home with hardly enough to get by.
Kung meron may malasakit ang gobyerno sa amin, medyo ipakita naman nila.
Higher minimum wages and transport fares are now on the table as the government provides temporary relief to struggling sectors of the economy.
Kaya po yung 6,500, pag binigay sa amin ng isang buwan, dalawang buwan, hindi po makakasapat.
And while the cash aid can only do so much, the government is also hard-pressed to manage resources properly.
We realize that this is not enough, but this is what we can afford as of this time.
The vision of looking after the welfare of workers in our C-suite vision. Basic goods are getting less affordable. Companies are reducing headcount and livelihoods are hanging in the balance. Filipinos are facing these concerns on the back of the health crisis. And now, the repercussions of a war that's triggering a spike in oil prices and keeping our kababayans on edge. Let's now have an exchange with RCBC Chief Economist Michael Rico. Michael, the government strategy is targeted subsidies and cash dole-outs. Will this really help our kababayans, especially the most vulnerable?
Well, definitely, Rico. That's the most targeted approach. That's to make sure that those who need the subsidies and the financial assistance most would get it. Well, at least among the other options. And of course, it's really a tough balancing act in making sure, well, in view of the scarce resources of the government, but when at the same time help in sustaining the country's fiscal performance and overall.
But Michael, in the past, we have seen that the government has been, yes, allotting a budget for our marginalized society, for our drivers and for our fishermen, but not all of them have received these subsidies and dole-outs. How do we know now that they will really receive what they truly deserve because of the crisis that we're facing right now of rising oil prices and goods and services?
That's right, Rico. It's a matter of further rationalizing the list to make it more inclusive and encompassing on the most vulnerable sectors for both the transport and agricultural sector, and to ensure that everybody else is there. Because there's also a need to prevent the increase in poverty at the same time, and in the same extent also that to mitigate the pass-on effects to the general public. So hopefully that these are part of the non-monetary measures and interventions.
But of course, some of the allies of President Duterte are saying we should just temporarily suspend the fuel excise tax so everyone can, feel better, get some reprieve from these rising prices. And the effect and the impact will be across the board and not targeted. Do you think that this is also the best way to do it?
Well, the subsidies, maybe yes, because of the fiscal constraints, because the debt to GDP ratio has already reached a 60% international threshold. So there's already less leeway to have to widen the budget deficit in that respect. So
what about suspending the excise tax?
Well, yeah, that would widen it's estimated by the economic team by 0.5% of GDP. So that would correspondingly widen the budget deficit and increase further the country's borrowings and overall debt.
But do you think that it should be done now, that the President should call for a special session of Congress so our lawmakers can decide if they should temporarily suspend it, or even the DOF could suspend it?
Well, I think the economic team and Malacanang, they already made the decision. to continue collecting the excise taxes and instead go for the subsidies. So, well, in view of that, and at the same time, global oil prices remain volatile. Well, at least from a peak of $130 more than a week ago, last March 7th, now it has gone down to by more than $25. Now it's around $105. And just yesterday and early this week, it even went down to $95. Prior to the war, the day before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it was $92. So
Yeah, but still, Michael, when it's over $100 per barrel, and when you see those prices at the pump rising between 5 to 10 pesos per liter, that really hurts the pocket, of our kababayans. What other initiatives could the government implement apart from what they've already done to help our poor kababayans?
actually, that's the most effective. The subsidies would address would help prevent the increase in the number of people in poverty, especially in those vulnerable sectors in transport and agriculture. I think that's a right approach. It's considering again if there would be further increases, and at the same time the channels. If the existing channels would definitely help, like at the very least the cash cards or the ATMs.
Right.
If at least the platform is already there.
Well, that's the ideal scenario, no? That the government is efficient in disbursing the funding, especially for those who really need it. But Michael, another big problem here is underspending. The government collects taxes, allocates them to various programs and projects, but then the COA reports that a number of government agencies fail to utilize their budgets. What's your take on this? Why are we not efficient in using the money that is allotted?
Well, I think it's really, well, at least it's a matter of also allocating some of those unused funds, and whether it's through the approval of Congress. And right now it's already the campaign season that would really make it complicated. It's already outside the regular session. So, that's one. Allowing on an emergency basis, and of course there are some technicalities on the use of some excess funds, like saying declaring a state of it's similar to declaring a state of emergency or calamity. So those things would be the fastest solutions to increase the subsidies to the hardest hit sectors, in able to have the immediate effect.
Michael, another major issue that's being discussed right now is raising the minimum wage across the country. There are calls from the workers groups to raise it to 750 pesos or even 1,000 pesos per day. Is it time to raise it now?
Well, now it's really, first, it's a function of where would global oil and commodity prices stabilize, enable to have a firmer base from which the decision on either wage hikes or transport fares would be decided upon. And secondly, also, the economy just came from the pandemic, still reeling from the pandemic actually, and the recovery is still fragile. And so those are important considerations. Well, it just happened that at least the COVID cases now have dramatically declined in view of the increased vaccination. Of course, we cannot still say in the future if there will be future spikes, and that would, and we know whenever there are spikes, that would also require additional government spending on the various COVID programs going forward. So, so those are important considerations. But definitely, if there would be, the war between Ukraine and Russia is still uncertain for now. We don't really know when it's going to end and the impact on commodity prices. So at some point, both the proposed increase in wages and also on transport fares would be decided upon, and definitely there would be potential second round inflation effects in terms of higher prices of other goods and services. So those things need to be managed. Even the monetary authorities are keeping a close eye on those risk factors as well.
Thank you so much for this economic exchange. Michael Ricafort, Chief Economist of RCBC. And after 11 weeks of consecutive fuel price hikes, motorists may see some relief after the Energy Department says a price cut is likely to happen soon. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi says gasoline prices could drop by at least 5 pesos and diesel by 12 pesos per liter. A number of jeepney drivers and operators received the 6,500 peso fuel subsidy promised by the government this week. The bulk of the 2.5 billion peso cash aid will go to those with government permits, including drivers of PUVs, taxis, and TNVS. Tricycle drivers and delivery service riders can also receive the cash aid, but they will have to wait a little longer pending the list of tricycle drivers from local government units and the list of delivery service riders from the Trade Department. And now here's a rundown of this week's top business stories. The Asian Development Bank says the COVID-19 pandemic pushed 4.7 million more people in Southeast Asia into extreme poverty. Global Financial Services Group Nomura lowers its 2022 growth forecast for the country to 6.3 from 6.8% as expensive fuel pushes consumer prices higher. But Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Chua says the country is still on track to meet its growth target of 7 to 9% this year. The Bangko Sentral still plans to raise interest rates in the second half of 2022 as it remains optimistic on economic growth despite uncertainties in Eastern Europe. And straight ahead on the exchange, where your business is our business. With prices going up, can employers afford a higher minimum wage? The People Management Association of the Philippines and Unity for Wage Increase Now join us next. Plus, we find out if 4 days of work is practical for the manufacturing sector. We speak with the Federation of Philippine Industries. You're watching CNN Philippines. News you can trust. Glad you're staying with us right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Fewer Filipinos were out of work in January, even with the return of tighter COVID-19 restrictions, and this is according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. Government data reveals the joblessness rate was at 6.4% in January, translating to 2.93 million unemployed Filipinos. The number of underemployed or those looking for more jobs or longer working hours rose to 6.4 million. A number of labor groups have filed petitions for a wage increase as rising prices of basic goods make it more difficult for our kababayans to make ends meet. Let's now have an exchange with People Management Association of the Philippines, Ellen Fulido, and Unity for Wage Increase Now spokesperson, Charlito Arevalo. Thank you so much po for joining us on the exchange. Charlito, umpisan natin sa iyo, no? Ano po ang petisyon ng Unity for Wage Increase Now na itaas ang minimum na sahod sa gitna ng taas presyo ng langis at mga bilihin?
Yes. Ang aming petition ay sinumiti pa namin ito bago pa nagkaroon tayo ng pandemic, no? November 25, 2019, at until now ay hindi pa po ito tinutugunan ng Wage Board. Kaya inabot na po tayo ngayon ng patuloy na at halos linggo-linggong pagtaas ng pangunahing produkto ng gasolina at na mayroon pong epektong mas malala sa ating pang-araw-araw na pangangailangan. So kami po sa hanay po ng UWIN ay sa tingin po namin ay makatwiran ang dagdag sahod na gawing 750 dahil po para makaagapay po ang mga manggagawa sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan. Dahil po ang minimum wage ngayon na 537 ay dahil po sa inflation at sa patuloy nga pong pagtaas ng halaga ng petroleum products, ito po ay nagkakahalaga na lamang ngayon ng 423. Actually, 213 lang po ang idadagdag ng bawat kumpanya sa aming kahilingan.
So Ellen, 750 pesos ang hinihingi ng ating mga manggagawa. Kakayanin ba ito ng ating mga employers ang wage increase proposal na ito of 750?
Sa pananaw namin, kasi kailangan na talaga ding reviewin yung salary natin, minimum wage, because it's been more than 3 years, going 4 years na. Sa tingin namin, yung 750, while sa pag-aaral ng iba-ibang sektor, ay makakatulong sa mga manggagawa. Pero ang question dito, kaya ba ng mga kumpanya? Hindi lahat kasi ng kumpanya ay malalaki. And even the companies, the bigger companies would cringe also, especially kung mga labor-intensive companies yan.
At saka Ellen, no, yung ating mga micro and small enterprises, no, and medium-sized companies, no, sila yung talagang natamaan noong pandemya, and they make up more than 99% of the economy. So, kakayanin ba talaga, yan ang tanong dyan, no, kakayanin ba talaga nila yung pag-increase ng mga sahod?
Yun nga, bahagya pa lang bumabangon sa pagluluwag ng restriction natin to alert level 1. Bahagya pa lang nag-uumpisa at hindi pa halos nakakabawi, hindi pa nakaka-break even. And then there's this clamor for a wage increase na ayon nga sa balita, will not come in soon. Siguro at the very least 60 days, even to 6 months, depende sa pag-uusap yan ng various sectors. Not to mention, election is coming in May, so magpapalit tayo ng liderato, hindi rin natin alam kung ano mangyayari after the elections na may bago na tayong presidente.
Charlito, ikaw naman, no, mahigit 800 araw kayo naghihintay sa pagtaas ng mga sahod. Kung hindi may bibigay ng wage board, let's say over the next 60, 90 days, baka pagkatapos na maswear-in ang bagong presidente, ano po ang alternatibong solusyon para matulungan ang ating mga manggagawa?
Actually, ang nakikita po namin dito, yung epekto ng pagtaas ng petroleum product, ito yung sumasagasa sa sahod ng mga manggagawa. So, kailangan siguro, kagaya ng panawagan ng ibang sektor din, ay yung pagsususpinde ng excise tax at ng IVAT. Dahil sa tingin po namin, halos bababa ng 12 hanggang 17 pesos ang halaga ng petroleum products kung magsasakripisyo ng konti itong gobyerno natin sa pamamagitan ng pagsususpinde ng excise tax at ng IVAT.
Pero ayaw ng gobyerno isuspinde yung fuel excise tax at saka yung IVAT. Nagbibigay sila ng mga targeted subsidies and dole-outs.
Kaya nga po,
makakatulong ba ito sa mga manggagawa?
Ang hindi nga po namin maintindihan, imbis na tukuyin yung talagang ugat ng pagtaas ng pangunahing bilihin ay yung pagdo-dole out, yung inaatupag ng ating government na ano ang kakayanin ng 200 pesos per day sa bawat pamilya na kung isusumo total mo ito ay 6 pesos at 61 centavos lamang ang maidadagdag sa pang-araw-araw ng mga mamamayan. So tinalo pa nga po ito ng pagdagdag ng presyo ng gasolina kumpara sa ibibigay na tulong ng gobyerno. So sa tingin po namin, ang kagyat, ang immediate relief dito ay isuspindi ang excise tax nang sa ganun ay hindi tuluyang lumobo ang halaga ng petroleum product.
Pero sa mga employers, Ellen, ang alternative solution rin ba dito is a 4-day work week or hybrid working arrangement para naman matutulungan ang ating mga manggagawa para hindi naman sila kailangan pumunta sa opisina and spend on transportation and other miscellaneous items.
Alam niyo, ang stand namin dito, let the companies, let the employers, iba-iba kasing kumpanya, iba-ibang industriya yan eh. So let the employers decide what work setup would be best for their own organization, for their own company. So kung 4-day work week yan, 6-day work week yan, I think ang issue dito is ano yung work setup that would best address your operational requirements and at the same time uphold yung safety, security, health and wellness of the employees who are working, yung kapakanan ng mga manggagawa. So it's both ways dapat. I think ang nagiging concern ng mga manggagawa dito, baka bawasan yung sweldo ko. Hindi kasi kunyari 5-day work week yan. Yung ikalibang araw, i-distribute mo lang yung 8 hours dun sa 4 days. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. So imbes na 8 oras kang papasok from Monday to Thursday, magiging 10 days yon. So there shouldn't be any diminution in pay. So kung magkano yung sinusweldo mo, kung arawan ka, 537, equivalent pa rin sa 5 araw dapat ang matanggap mo. Kasi pinagtrabahuhan mo yun.
That's right. Maraming salamat sa inyong dalawa for this workers' exchange. PMAP President Ellen Fulido and UN spokesperson Charlito Arevalo. And join our discussion tonight. Our question, which do you support? Work from home, work from the office, or hybrid work? Why or why not? Send your answers to our social media accounts and I will read them later on the program. And still to come on the exchange, where your business is our business. A property consulting firm weighs in on the government's call to bring IT BPO workers back to the office. And can we apply a 4-day work week? We get the insights of the Federation of Philippine Industries right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust. Welcome back to the exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Let's now take a look at our social media accounts and we ask you, which do you support? Work from home, work from the office, or hybrid work? Why or why not? And here are your answers. Jay Salt says, it is time for the country to embrace the work from home arrangement, especially that employees can deliver the same results while in the office. Jay also cited heavy traffic congestion and poor transportation as concerns. Jo Barnes shares the opinion. She explains work from home setups are better for employees' mental health and personal finances, but mentions some challenging issues including internet connectivity. For GC Snorlax, hybrid is the best way to go. He explains this will help employees save money on public transport and support companies to cut back on operational costs. We would like to thank you for your insights. Keep joining the discussions on CNN Philippines' official social media pages. Well, the government wants the IT BPO industry to end work-from-home arrangements and require employees to return to office beginning this April. But property consulting firm Colliers Philippines says the government should heed the call to postpone the return to physical work until September, especially now that fuel prices have gone up.
Well, there are various proposals right now. So it could be a 40 to 60 work from home, work in office split. There are some that are 50 to 50. But the general consensus of the occupiers is to allow for a gradual transition. There are some employees that are expressing that they've grown accustomed to the work from home, and there is a risk of attrition that is being expressed by some of our clients.
The Fiscal Incentives Review Board had rejected the plea of the IT BPO companies to keep the work-from-home setup until September. The National Economic and Development Authority proposes a 4-day work week to conserve energy and help workers save on expensive gas triggered by the Ukraine-Russia war. Let's now have an exchange with Federation of Philippine Industries, Jesus Aranza, on how this would impact the manufacturing industry. Jess, great to have you with us on the exchange. Sinusuporta ba ng inyong federasyon ang 4-day work week dahil sa pagtaas ng presyo ng krudo?
Hindi, Rico, kasi hindi lahat ng kumpanya pare-pareho. Maraming kumpanya tayo sa industries na kailangan mo huwag yung puputol ang production. You should not stop because it will cost a lot for the company every time it goes into a startup. Yung startup nila like in the plastic, in the glass, in the steel. Pagpahit mo lamang, it will take a lot of power and a lot of expenses. So we are not for that for the work week. Hindi angkop. Napakarami. So ako, I would suggest na sabi nga nung kanina na siguro individual companies should be given the opportunity to decide for themselves based on the dues increases of their manufacturing process.
But could there also be, Jess, a transition rather than do it immediately because we're seeing prices going up? Maybe a transition period of another 6 months sa pagbabalik ng mga manggagawa sa mga manufacturing facilities.
Tama, Rico. Ang punto ko nga, one should not make a decision on a basis of temporary situation. Gagawa ka, halimbawa bukas ang kayo sila, sayang na mga pagod natin. Limit muna, tingnan natin how good will, how effective will be the meeting of Ukraine as negotiated by some Western countries. At pangalawa, siguro, ang dapat na gawin natin is maglagay na muna tayo ng temporary na relief muna sa tinatawag nating value-added tax. Hindi lahat, no? I think we have to separate a pump that will give a reduction, alisin ng konti yung VAT at saka yung excise tax, so that yung transport of employees, of workers, and the transport also of goods, para maibsan natin ang pagtaas ng mga goods sa ating bansa.
Pwede rin dyan targeted temporary suspension of some of the excise taxes of some oil products. For example, yung diesel at kerosene, no? Because these are basically that affects the marginalized part of our society, yung poor sector, no?
At saka yung diesel being used to transport ng mga passengers, lalo ng mga empleyado, at saka yung mga vessel that will carry goods from one region to another.
Ito namang, Jess, yung hybrid working arrangements. Kaya kung hindi 4-day work week, what about hybrid working arrangements? Will this also work for the trade and manufacturing industries?
Ayaw ko yun, Rico. Alam mo
rin yun.
When I was in high school, I studied physics. Pag dumating yung inertia, the energy at rest, static, na kung pag nasanay na, mahirapan bumangon. Parang ganun yan eh. If you recall, pag nagbabakasyon tayo for 2 months, bakasyon ka, summer, pagdating ng opening, the first week or 2 na pagpasok mo, parang hindi ka makabangon sa kama mo. So that is something that should not be done because it will defeat the very purpose, yung efficiency ng mga tao magsasuffer. Parang,
so, what is the suggestion now of the Federation para matulungan ng ating mga manggagawa if you are not supporting a wage increase?
We are not, but as I've said, the companies individually, marami naman yan puro may tinatawag na collective bargaining agreements. So they can work on a economic assistance, probably a certain amount that can be given to their employees, part of the economic assistance.
Thank you so much for this Work Week Exchange. Federation of Philippine Industries Head, Jesus Aranza. And this is the exchange. We make sense of the facts and the figures and the ups and downs of the business cycle because your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Thanks for watching CNN Philippines. News you can trust.